talking about the real history of the Black-Brown Coalition. This is a Hispanic scholar. And I want y'all to understand. Listen to this. This is him telling you what we've been saying. Hold on.
A very small generation of middle-class Mexican-American advocates fought back. And this was an example of what some scholars have called the other white race strategy, of which Mexican-Americans for a large chunk of the 20th century, the advocates, sought to be claimed as white because all rights were conferred on you only if you were white. And so the longest time, Mexican-American advocates sought for this whiteness. And the example of going to your congressman and saying, what did they took us out of the white category, put us back. That was a poignant moment. We know that this other white strategy had its problems. We know the famous case in the 1950s in which a Mexican-American had been convicted of murder, and his lawyer said, well, there was not one Mexican-American on the jury. This was on a jury of his peers. And the judge said, well, Mexicans are white, and the jury's all white, so what's your problem? Clearly an imperfect strategy. So by the 1950s, Mexican-American advocates began consciously and subconsciously sort of to adopt the increasingly successful strategies of African Americans. And they then had to toe this very delicate line of trying to be designated sufficiently enough minorities to take advantage of Brown versus Board of Education and protections for minorities without losing their whiteness. So they played this dance for a little bit. But then with the advent of clearly race-based answers to social problems, the Voting Rights Act, Affirmative Action, Mexican Americans by the late 60s and early 70s said, we're people of color too. Overnight, Mexican American advocates had fought to be white. The last 20th century, hey, we're people of color, what are you talking about? I say this jokingly, and I've gotten some horrible emails, but I don't say this to disparage Mexican Americans. I think it's quite brilliant myself. Because it's the system that's stupid. And your ability, can you really blame a person for trying to manipulate a system that's really done you no good?
Bam. Right there. They're telling you that this shit is a finesse. Come on, we're the Black and Brown Coalition Negroes. This is them out of their own mouths telling you what the finesse is. This is, when they tell you, when a group of people, black people, when they tell you from their own mouths how the whole Black-Brown Coalition is a big fucking finesse. And he's up here, I think is brilliant. He's still on code. We've been telling y'all this for years, that it's a big ass finesse. He told the truth. He's telling big facts. It's nothing but a big ass finesse. There's never been a coalition because they view themselves as white. There is no brown. No, there is no brown. They view themselves as white. They classify themselves as white. Brown is a myth that lives in the heads of black people. Whenever I see black people running around here talking about some goddamn black and brown, I want to smack them. This man right here, Mexican American advocate, just told y'all ain't no black and brown. We are white. And we saw a finesse, we saw an opportunity to leech off black folks, and that's what we do. We're people of color when it's convenient to get something that black folks fought for. That's why the black and brown bullshit comes out. I really wish y'all, for years I've been telling black folks, stop using black and brown. Stop using black and brown. Please stop using that. Family, do y'all understand, boy, some of these white Latino people, especially during the Jim Crow era, some of the vile shit they were doing, I put up a tweet about this guy right here. This guy was running things down in Louisiana. Leander Perez. This guy right here, the boss of the Delta. This was a hardcore Latino white supremacist. Family, this dude right here was a hardcore Latino white supremacist. This dude down in Louisiana, he was a staunch segregationist. This man sat here and created all types of policies to keep black people disenfranchised. He would give speeches and mobilize Klan groups against black people. Black people would get attacked because of this man. This man famously said that, and I put the quote up, The best way to hate a nigger is to hate him before he's born. You know how cold that is? Google that. This dude said that. While we're sitting up here, black folks, putting our lives on the line, fighting for everybody, they're sitting up here saying some bullshit like that. The best way to hate a nigger is to hate him before he's born. You understand? That's the coalition right there. Ain't no coalition. Now, there's some individual people that you can be cool with, but when it comes to groups, operating as groups, everybody operates against us. Now, we as Foundation of Black Americans, we are circling our wagons and solidifying our culture. This is why it's important for us to designate who we are and then designate our culture. We determine what our culture is going to be. Our culture is oftentimes given to us by other people. This is why it's very important for us to establish what our culture is going to be. And all of the, when I see Negroes running around here talking about stop Asian hate, when I see Negroes saying that, boy, you need to stop too. Because there's another Asian woman. I want to play this clip too. This Asian woman here talking about some of the important civil rights cases that the Asians fought, not against white supremacy. Because see, what they'll do the Jedi mind trick. They'll say, well, racism goes all, there's all types of racism. Asian Americans, we face racism. There was a landmark case down in Mississippi where Asians felt, our civil rights were violated. No. Y'all didn't fight for the right to eradicate racism. They fought for the right to just keep practicing racism against black people and let them join the white people in practicing the racism. You see? They don't tell you all the story. Asians have always come over here to fight with white supremacists against us. So it's never, hey, don't be racist. No, racism shouldn't have a place anywhere here. No. Racism is fine just as long as it's the niggas. And I'll help you with the niggas. Just leave me alone. That's what it's always been. And here's an Asian woman who's Chinese American explaining this. Listen, if you listen to them, let them talk, they'll tell you the truth. This is them telling the truth. Listen.
Who lived in the Mississippi Delta, for example, in the 1920s. By the way, this is the community that gave rise to the Supreme Court case Gonlan v. Rice, where Chinese Americans challenged the placement of their children in so-called colored schools, and because they wanted to be able to go to school with whites. And their argument, very dramatically, was we Chinese people, being pure Chinese, deserve protection from the contamination of blackness as much as you white students do.
Woo!
That's why we should be able to go to school with white students.
Let me play that again. Let me play that again. Let me play all the stop. Let me follow the stop Asian hate niggas. Let me play that again. This is what their group did. Hold on.
We Chinese people, being pure Chinese, deserve protection from the contamination of blackness as much as you white students do. That's why we should be able to go to school with white students. So they failed, but they sort of subverted the decision in the Supreme Court by just saying we refuse to go to school with black children, so we're going to form our own schools or go to religious schools, etc. Okay, so this was the community that gave rise to that case. And many of the grocers had married black women and had children who were biracial. And the white school boards, the white leaders in the town were quite explicit in the Mississippi Delta. They said, if you repudiate your black kin, we will allow you to come closer to whiteness. And that's what many of them did. Not all of them, but many of them did. And this was why they experienced the Chinese American community in the Delta significant social mobility, like up through World War II and just past.
There you go. So, man, the name of the game, all these other groups, family, the name of the game is the same. None of these groups come over here as camaraderie groups for us. They all come over, join with white people, and show them how much they can practice anti-black racism against us. I'm showing you